Let's go to this now. The United States says there are serious and widespread concerns that the current draft of a UN Security Council resolution, which aims to boost humanitarian aid to Gaza, could actually slow down deliveries. According to the World Health Organization, there are no functioning hospitals left in northern Gaza. Yesterday's talks in Egypt on a temporary ceasefire are said to have made little progress, while the UN Security Council has again delayed voting on a resolution calling for a ceasefire. Now, for more on this, we're joined by, in Washington, D.C., by SABC News correspondent Nick Harper. Nick, thank you so much for your time. What does the U.S. base its warning on that the draft may have, may slow down some deliveries?
Yeah, one of the main problems from the United States' point of view is the wording of this text, which says that the UN would have sole responsibility to monitor any of the aid deliveries entering Gaza. Now, that is not the status quo. Up until now, it has been Israel that has been responsible for checking any deliveries entering the Gaza Strip. They sign off on what goes in to that Palestinian enclave. But according to this new resolution, to try and push aid into the Strip, it would be the United Nations that would have responsibility over monitoring what actually enters the territory. And that is something that the United States and its ally Israel are against. The United States warns essentially that it would all come down to red tape, that this would be a much slower operation if it were to be headed up and overseen by the United Nations. Now, the UN, of course, is arguing the opposite. They say that if they have the ability to oversee all of this, they would be able to ramp up the aid deliveries, which some say have been rather slow in recent weeks. The UN saying that they would be able to push much more aid to those several million Palestinians in the enclave who are desperately in need of help. But of course, what we've seen play out at the United Nations during the course of this week is just delay after delay. On Monday, that was the day when this draft resolution was meant to come up for a vote for the Security Council. It was pushed to Tuesday, then to Wednesday, and now we're into Thursday, and it looks as if it could be delayed another day. The UN Security Council is meeting at the moment. It's working through a number of scheduled meetings that it already had on the books, one looking at Lebanon, another one looking at how the United Nations works with the African Union, and a third looking at the Middle East situation as it relates to Syria. Now, the thinking is that the Council, after all of that is done, could take up a vote, but we're told that those behind the scenes negotiations, which are still ongoing, do not at this stage have got to a point where they feel they're all ready to get down to the table and hold a vote. So we are expecting another delay for this draft resolution, which could push it into a fifth day, Friday, when a vote could come up if the United States is happy with the final wording of the text in the resolution.
And what do the delays then mean, Nick, especially when you think about the fact that, for example, the World Health Organization talking about the fact that there's now, no functioning hospitals that are left in the north of Gaza, and looking at what has been happening on the ground as well. So these particular delays, as you say, possibly entering the fifth day tomorrow, and maybe not, we'll see a vote. What impact is this having on the ground?
Of course, it's all holding up the ability to provide life-saving support to those Palestinians, civilians who are desperately in need of getting this aid, people who've been forced out of their homes, perhaps lost their homes, who have perhaps lost relatives, loved ones in the Israeli bombardment of the Gaza Strip. The United Nations and its various agencies, including the Children's Agency, UNICEF, warning of just dire, unbelievable, apocalyptic scenes within the Gaza Strip. And the real hope was that if this resolution were to pass, then that aid, which is desperately needed, would be able to get to people on the ground. But part of why we are seeing this delay is a real desire amongst the 15 members of the Security Council to ensure that this resolution does get passed. Because if it had come up for a vote on Monday, the US would have simply done what it did a couple of weeks ago with another Gaza-related resolution. It would have vetoed it. The hope is that by having these negotiations, by being able to hammer out a draft text that everyone is happy with, the United States won't veto it and therefore kill the opportunity of being able to get aid to more Palestinians.
Wow, and let's see then, Nick, if this does, pass through, the text gets to be accepted by all parties involved, and what then happens next. But let me thank you so much for that update for our viewers. That is Nick Harper, SABC News correspondent, coming to us live from Washington, D.C.